Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric on a continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA DE-10 Nano board project. And today we're doing MiSTer February news, all the fun things that are happening in February with MiSTer, and it has been an absolutely epic month with so many awesome things to talk about. And right off the top, we gotta talk about the PlayStation 1 Core, because I just did a preview last week and CDDA audio was not yet working. Well, now it is. You need to be on an unstable MiSTer build, maybe that's changed by the time this video comes out. I'm recording this on Monday, it'll go live on Thursday. But the MiSTer is basically a PlayStation 1 now. Yes, there's bug fixes to be implemented, multi-disc support, things such as that. But for the most part, you can pretty much play any PlayStation 1 game on the MiSTer, and you should have a relatively good time doing it. Yeah, you might find some freezing or glitching here, and that's part of the bug fixing stage. Hopefully what comes next is really good analog video out, because the PlayStation 1 looks so much better on a CRT than it does on an LCD in my opinion. But what has gone into this core is absolutely spectacular. Even if we still have a little graphical glitching around the edges, we have the SPU audio, we have CDXA audio, we have CDDA audio, and I will do a video on how to set the core up once this gets a little bit more quote-unquote mature, because right now you need very specific builds, and if I do a setup relatively, it's probably going to be out of date very quickly. But the audio on this core is spectacular, so go ahead and listen for like 30 seconds and I'll come back and tell you more MiSTer February news. The games on MiSTer just look, sound, and play like PlayStation 1 games like you would expect, and it's going to be amazing to see what this core is doing in March because the updates come fast and furious. But speaking of another core in development, one that we can't test as a beta is the Sega Saturn Core from SRG 320, but I did ask him previously for permission to use this footage, and he does have a lot more developments as far as what's going on with the Sega Saturn. And taking some look at some of his footage here, the Sega Saturn Core is coming. It's just one of those things. The maker of the PlayStation 1 Core is letting the community beta test. SRG 320 has a different philosophy. He's been working on it in the background and giving us some updates. But this is all footage of a Sega Saturn Core on a MiSTer, and it looks and sounds spectacular for what it is. This is just looking like a Sega Saturn, and that's amazing because that's another system that I think is going to be spectacular on MiSTer when and if it is done. Because a lot of people played PlayStation 1 back in the day, but not as many of us own Sega Saturns. I did, because that's because I really wanted to play House of the Dead, but I think MiSTer is going to open the doors to a lot of different people to experience the Sega Saturn for the first time, and I'm always advocating for people to play new and interesting experiences that they haven't checked out before, and that's what MiSTer's great at, allowing us to see those things. But taking a look at Sega Rally here, you can see there's a few graphical glitches still going on, but it looks like it's running at a really nice speed, and it's exactly what the game should look like outside of those few graphical glitches if you just played original hardware. And that is amazing, because Sega Saturn is not an easy platform to deal with. You have two different processors and two different VDP chips. It is a complicated system to deal with when you were coding for it back in the day in the 90s, so to get this running on FPGA is really impressive. And you will still see here in Nights into Dreams, there's a little bit of jitter in those graphics. They're kind of popping in and out. When we get to the actual gameplay itself, all the colors look accurate, it sounds good, it feels good as far as the motion is concerned. Granted, I am not playing this. Once the core is available for people to test, I will certainly do a video on how it works. But it's amazing that Sega Saturn is getting closer, because like I said just a moment ago, the Sega Saturn is a nightmare of silicon. To get that all working on the MiSTer in FPGA logic elements is nothing short of spectacular. And taking a look at Guardian Heroes here, everything looks in 2D and in 3D really good, and it seems like the 2D stuff might be progressing a little bit quicker because obviously it's less intense on the hardware, because looking at this and having played at Guardian Heroes a ton, this looks just like a capture off a Sega Saturn. And recently SRG 320 has shown some more footage of his Saturn Core in progress. Here you'll see Duke Nukem 3D. There are a few graphical glitches in that skybox, but otherwise it looks like it's running relatively well. And going over to something a little bit more 2D is Gex. If you've never played Gex, the original game, give it a go. People seem to think it's not good, but it's actually really legit good, so check it out. And of course, one of the big games on the Saturn, Virtua Fighter. Here it looks like it's running a little bit slower than native, but of course this is still a work in progress core, so it's not expected to run at full speed. But what I see here is looking really good so far. So the good news is the Saturn is still in the works, and this nice beige box here, or white, it used to be white, it's more beige now with this coloring, should be running on MiSTer eventually. Now moving over to some of the visual filters, I asked Trash Uncle to talk about his stuff here and he said go ahead. He's definitely made a lot of quote-unquote improvements or simplifications in how his filters work. We now have different filter options that'll just combine 2, 3, 4 different options into one preset to make it look like a certain type of television or monitor. You can just see here in his footage going through, there's different options that you're able to add. Because when the different shadow masks and filters came through, they were awesome, but you really had to pick and choose what worked for you. If you wanted to just look like a Sony Trinitron, you can just now pick the Sony Trinitron option and it'll put all those different settings up on your screen to make it look like a Sony. Now granted, these are PVMs, not Trinitrons, but they're very similar, and that is absolutely amazing. Trash Uncle's been doing a huge service to the MiSTer community, getting a lot of these things working with the shadow masks and different filters. And on the video filter front, adaptive scan lines have come to certain cores, and basically that means that those scan lines will lighten or darken depending on the brightness in the video, and that's kind of what a regular CRT television would do. And I will update my CRT MiSTer video probably in the next month or two to talk about all these things more in depth, because it's more than just a news update can provide. But there's so many different filters, scan lines, shadow masks coming to MiSTer, and Trash Uncle has done a great job condensing down a lot of the options, including his own, into these presets that are going to allow you to get really close to the look you want without having to combine multiple filters or go through so many different options. But if you do want to articulate some of the presets, you 100% can go through and do that as well, which is awesome. Now on the new core front, Zero Wing, a Toaplan or Toaplan, I'm never quite sure how to pronounce it, shmup is working on MiSTer, and that is absolutely awesome because that company makes some of the best shmups around. I absolutely love their games. I have a few as PCBs and different releases on consoles, and it's spectacular to be able to play Zero Wing on the MiSTer. Now it's still a work in process, but I was playing around with it and I didn't notice much at all that was not working, but it's great to start getting some of these other arcade boards in the arcade core section outside of what Jotego, I'm sorry, has been doing for the last couple of months. And the Toaplan version 1 hardware has a lot of different amazing games on it, and because Zero Wing is working, that means that some of these other games should be quote-unquote relatively easy to bring over to MiSTer as well, because once one board is working, a lot of that work can be reused in different games. You'll see here the different shmups, Fire Shark, Hellfire. These are all really fun games, but one that did get pivoted over, I just did it on Unported Playlist, is going to be Outzone. That is very similar to the same hardware as Zero Wing, and you'll see here that that is functioning as a beta as well, and these are all really awesome things to talk about. We're getting so many more awesome boards in the arcade section, and there's so many more things that could come to MiSTer, but it's not just consoles like the PlayStation 1. That's been getting all the press lately, it seems like, for a really good reason. It's a huge project, but there's a ton of fun stuff coming on the arcade side as well, and we should be celebrating that because more arcade boards is always a great thing in my book. And speaking of awesome new hardware coming to MiSTer, GunCon 2 support is here, but it is not finished. If you want to test it, you definitely can check it out. I've been playing around with it, and we'll probably do a video when it's closer to fully featured and taking a look at a point-blank capture from a long time ago on composite video. It's going to be amazing to have GunCon 2 support on MiSTer because we're going to get better video quality a lot easier. The GunCon 2 is one of the best light guns on the market. Namco absolutely killed it when they made that device, and since it does just have a USB port, getting that over on MiSTer is amazing. It's still really dicey. It does work and you can check it out, but maybe wait like a month or so unless you really want to get into it. Back to the arcade side though, Jotego has a lot of new stuff coming, things like Beirut. He's constantly updating people on his Twitter, and if you're a member of his Patreon, you get a little bit more updates there. but he is still plugging away at so many awesome things for MiSTer. He's been talking about the Neo Geo Pocket Color Core, IGS PGM, Capcom CPS3, but his Twitter is a great resource as far as news is concerned. He is just constantly doing fun stuff, and he also gives you a little peek in the background of how the CPU on the Neo Geo Pocket Color shifts data and bits around. It's a little bit more of the nitty-gritty on how these cores are made and how you have to understand the hardware, but it is a ton of fun, and his cores are being updated for Shadowmasks. By the time that this video is out, they should already be fully updatable, and that's going to be amazing because Shadowmasks on arcade cores are as good as they could be as they are on console. So getting those Shadowmasks over on MiSTer, as far as the Jotego arcade cores are concerned, things like CPS, CPS 1.5, CPS 2, is going to be absolutely spectacular. Now, a little bit of a bummer news. The DE-10 Nano from Terasic is still having some stock issues. I've heard rumors that if you contact Terasic directly, they may have some in stock, but if you're still looking for a MiSTer, it might take a little bit more time, and sadly I have seen a few of these pop up on eBay from sellers, just the boards, for like double the price. If MiSTers are going to start getting scalped, that's going to be a really big bummer for the community, but honestly, just get in line on Mouser or DigiKey and you can find one. They are available from AliExpress, and I have heard of a few people that bought them for too much money on this site and have gotten them. I absolutely don't think you should pay this, and if you decide to buy from AliExpress, no guarantees it'll arrive. I have no idea who these people are. I've just heard rumors that you can get them there. But short of that, that's everything that's happening in February for MiSTer, but I'm sure something will happen about 10 hours before this video goes live, so leave me a comment down below and tell me what I forgot, what I missed. Keeping up with everything going on in the MiSTer ecosystem is a full-time job, and it's a job that I love to do, but I always miss something, so leave me a comment down below and tell me what's the coolest new thing that came to MiSTer that I forgot or you're excited about. Short of that, I'll have a MiSTer video next week, and I'll have videos throughout the week as well, but I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.